Welcome back to another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. My name is Mike, also known as the Used Book Guy on YouTube, along with my friend and fellow full-time reseller, Johnny B. We help people start and grow their reselling businesses from the ground up. We also have a weekly Zoom call and private Discord for all YouTube members. Head on over to youtube.com/usedbookguy to join the channel and gain access to the full-length podcast, Zoom call, and private Discord today. Let's get into this week's episode. What is up, everybody? Welcome in another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. Mike here alongside Johnny B, as always. And Johnny doesn't know it, but the topic I told him we were going to do just now before the call, I've actually switched it up a little bit because I thought about it, right? So the topic today is going to be the days of lazy reselling are gone. Our initial topic here, just for full transparency, was the golden days of reselling are long gone. But I think the days of lazy reselling are gone because I still think there is a lot of money to be made in reselling. So I really, I couldn't say the golden days were gone if I'm kind of still, living proof, and Johnny's living proof that you still can make a full-time income reselling. So yeah, that's what we're going to cover today. And I do think things have changed so much, and I think it changes faster now. It's almost like technology, like the reselling game, it switches up. There's so many fads and crazes that come along. And for somebody that's niche down, it's kind of easy for like me and you to block out, the vintage tees, the collectibles, the trading cards. But for like an everything seller, it's like you got to kind of chase the fads and just adapt your business to whatever is hot in the moment. So I'm going to throw it over to you. You kind of can take us anywhere you want to take us.
Sure. I could speak on both fronts for Amazon and eBay. Let's start with little old Amazon here. Little old. You can't send in $2 books anymore. The fees are gone way, way up. They pretty much doubled. And I was only in Amazon for less than a year. Now I'm back again, but yeah, it's that changed, and it wasn't very long. And then on eBay, there's some fee change there, but that's traditional, nothing really major. But the bigger change is the big talk is AI. Oh my gosh, the AI is going to do better listings than human beings. What are we going to do? Well, you can adjust. You can do things the AI can't currently do. It'll eventually be able to do it. Or you can do something better than the AI can do, at least for a little while. But then you're competing with that, and then you couple that with huge volume. Are you out of business? Question mark. Nobody really knows. So it's a wait and see kind of game. Or maybe we all get lucky and eBay just bans AI technology. Doubt it. But there are things to consider. You have to constantly be upping your game. It's not that you're out of the game. You got to be upping your game as well as diversifying your game. That's why I'm back in Amazon. That's why I got a brick and mortar. That way, when a curveball pops me in my noggin, I can adjust accordingly, or it gives me time to adjust. I'm not dependent on any one sales channel and or platform. And I'm probably looking to do more just to double my bets more or less. Yeah, you got to take it seriously, especially if you're doing this full time. You constantly got to be adapting and adjusting, and you got to be able to see the writing on the wall, even if you got to squint and move in a little bit to see it. So I went on a tangent there. Your turn, Mike.
I think a lot of this boils down to like, how do people find out about reselling, right? Usually it's YouTube or some kind of social media platform, or they hear from a friend who's seen something on YouTube, right? And I do think a lot of the this is just one example, right? I'm in the same boat. Media is like, so saturated, but I think a lot of the big time YouTubers that I kind of see in my feed, a lot of it is, focused on selling clothes, used clothing, right? So the problem you have here, if you decide today you're going to start a reselling business and you're going to sell used clothing or even used media, you have to realize you are stepping into a market where saturated doesn't even do it justice. There's so many sellers, there's so many items for pennies. People sell it for pennies. People will even sell items that take a loss. Some of these huger players in these categories. And I think what happens is, right, and a lot of people, maybe they started reselling, during the pandemic where everything was flying off the shelf because people couldn't go to the stores. All of a sudden, I think we're kind of starting to get back to normal here, and even further back past the pandemic. Even when I was selling everything, I feel like it was easier to resell. I feel like my things sold better because there was less competition. Now these categories are flooded with people, and what happens is It's the same thing. It's probably worse on Amazon. Is that you have to realize your competition, right? If me and Johnny are competition,
Yeah.
Johnny doesn't have to know anything about the item or what the price the item at or what the item sold for in the past. This probably happens hundreds of thousands times a day. Somebody prices their item way undervalued and somebody snatches it up immediately to resell it for profit. This happens all the time. You can't control other people. So when you're in saturated markets, your hands are like you're kind of tied. Even if you're finding quality stuff, you can't control Johnny B, the idiot book shepherd, right? Like that's just the reality of it. And people get so frustrated. Well, why are they selling it for $5? This is a $50 shirt. Well, they can sell it for whatever they want. There's nothing you can do. I can do. Anybody can do. eBay can do, because that's just the reality of the game. The platforms want the sales, and they can't control how you price things. Sure, Amazon kind of does with their fair pricing policy, but Amazon will let you give something away. You want to give it away for 5, $6. They're not going to argue with you and say, all right, that's another happy customer for us. You pay us our fees, and who cares about that? But I do think like it's what you see and what people kind of get in the door with is they're already stepping into a market that is so saturated, and you don't have any plans to differentiate yourself from me or Johnny. If we all had the same book, right? You listening or watching, me and Johnny, we all have the same exact book, right? What are we doing to differentiate ourselves? You're either going to have a much better listing like Johnny, you're either going to sell it for, try to get 20 bucks out of it like me, or you're going to be, somebody that just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to sell this book for $5. And you actually think when it sells for $5, you're going to get $5. So a lot of people, I think, just step into oversaturated markets. And I think that's like kind of the biggest mistake you can do. And I think it's so prevalent now that everybody's trying to get into the same things. Amazon, everybody wants to sell media because, oh, it's easy. The ROI is crazy, but there's so much more that goes into it, and you're just stepping into a whole pile of crap, basically.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of this. I've price tanked a lot of listings as of late because of my repricer wasn't set up. Mike helped me out earlier this morning for $7.99 when these books are way more than that. But I just screwed over my competition for if they scam my books this weekend, so I'm happy about that. But anyway, I'm having to go back in and manually adjust them right now. But if I didn't stay on top of it, and today's theme, from lazy about it, just let it go and not even bother to check, I wouldn't have known, and I missed out a whole bunch of money, keeping more people like Mike out of the market because they're like, who's this jackass on the listing? Well, it's Johnny. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and can't send my book in now. Um, and I guess that's the other thing. You got to always be double checking things just to make sure. You can be as firm as you want on it's right. I set it up right the first time. I thought I did. Like, I reactivated my account. I didn't bother to check till I had some boxes checked in. You know what? Well, my prices were out of whack, so now I gotta manually go do it. It's what I'm gonna be spending my weekend doing. I gotta check the merchant fulfilled as well this weekend just to make sure, but I think everything's right there. But anyway, back on topic. Reselling is not easy. It's probably more challenging than it's ever been if you want to do this for the long term. Now, if you're just doing this part-time or on a hobbyist kind of level, you may not need to pay attention as stringently, but even at a part-time or hobbyist level, you want as much money for the time you put in as you can. So maybe you put some time away to check things, refine those things, even on a smaller scale than people like Mike and I.
I do think like I think about it like let's just take you as an example. For example, if Johnny B, he lists his books, he's got full item descriptives, full, everything's perfect. It doesn't get no better than his listings for his books. Now, what happens if Johnny B existed 10 years ago, right, where there wasn't the competition today, he maybe would only need to take 2 photos, right? One of the front of the book, one of the back of the book, put a cute little, description in there. Hey, thanks for supporting my small eBay store, right? And those items, you could argue, would probably sell back then. But now things are so different. The competition is just, if Johnny B didn't take the approach he did to his eBay today, I mean, it would be tough going, right? If he was lazy with his listings and he's trying to get a higher price for the same items that I'm selling, he's basically capitalizing on all the lazy people out there listening to this right now that are selling his kind of stuff, right? He's like, well, you don't want to, do it the right way, then I will. I'll charge a premium and I'll actually make money when mine sells. And even though you're not, you're spending the time to list it the wrong way, when you sell it for $5, you're not even making no money. So it's almost like a double-edged sword that works in your favor. And I think you have to differentiate yourself. Like, I don't think you can just keep copy and pasting what other people are doing on all the listings out there, and all the some of the stuff. There's, hundreds of the same exact shirt, and it's like, how can you ever, justify you getting a sale for something if there's 100 of them listed? Like, you got a 1 in 100 chance. However often that shirt sells, once a week. I mean, good luck. And there's no rhyme or reason. Are you promoting? Are you the lowest price? People are always going to lower their price because there's 100 of them, so it's not going to sell. So people are gradually going to lower their price. It's like, I don't know, man. I just don't see the path forward with people that are getting in the game today or even recently, and are just trying to basically do what everybody else is doing. I think you have to start thinking outside the box, starts doing different things, experimenting with different things, because the days of just stepping in and selling, used books on eBay and Amazon, I think they're long gone. And I think it's the same with clothing. I mean, the huge clothing sellers have systems in places, processes in places, suppliers in places. If you get it for the cheapest, you can sell it for the cheapest and still make a lot of money, right? That's kind of the big thing here, even when it comes to media. These huge resellers can sell it for $6 if they got it for 3 cents a piece. And those are the people you're competing against at the end of the day. They have the most listings. And there's some of these huge guys, some of these huge players do things the right way, right? Like, we always reference, Chris and Tech. Like, Tech does his clothing like no other, right? Everything's done the right way, and he does huge volumes of it. So it's like, how could you ever compete with somebody like that? You really can't. So you have to figure out a way to switch it up, be different than that person, right? Even if it's the same category, kind of like Johnny B's doing with those books, right? It's a little crappy paperback we see in every thrift store, but the way he lists it, takes the photos, has a description, drags all the information in there. No other listing on eBay is going to contain that information. So he's winning automatically, basically, just by doing things the right way.
Right. And to put things in other perspective for you, I mean, Mike mentioned it with the larger ones. I just crossed 10,000 active listings, and that may sound like a whole heck of a lot to somebody who's not even close to that. But I am a very small fish in a very larger ocean. 10,000 is nothing immediate, absolutely nothing. Now, I don't do the scan route like the bigger guys do, and they have conveyor belts going all day 24/7. I can't, that's not my game. So I had to do something differently than that game, because I can't compete as far as slinging books up left and right. That's not my game. My game is about quality listings. And yeah, some of us have the same books. I have the same book as the person I just mentioned. But if you rack the two up and you rule out price, because mine is going to be higher, sure. But my listing just looks better. It looks like I want to buy it versus, oh, this is a stock photo. Huh, half this information's wrong because they scanned it in and didn't even bother to double check. Huh, but it's only $4.99 to get it. It's the wrong book, or it's different than what they were expecting, or it's in worse condition. Because I've noticed with those higher end sellers, their conditioning is all over the place. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. More often than not, they didn't catch everything. Versus mine, we probably catch like 99.99% of errors, flaws on our conditioning. Even that's thorough by us, because again, our separators quality experience. What you see is what you get.
I think if you break down the categories, I think there's an opportunity in every category to do something different within the category to make money. So I'm just going to start throwing some crazy ones out there, and you kind of can think about some as I go here, right? So we had Sabrina on the podcast a few weeks ago, and like, she's a huge Barbie seller, right? And I said, well, can you sell Barbie parts? And somebody out there right now is probably like, what do you mean Barbie parts? Like, can you pull off the head of the Barbie? Can you sell the legs of the Barbie? Even down to the accessories, right? So if you're just selling Barbies and you take a step back and you're like, wait a minute, I can sell accessories and Barbie heads, Ken heads. Like, yeah, it might sound a little decrepit to somebody, right? It's like, oh man, this weirdo is selling, take a picture of the little Ken head on my finger, right? Like, here goes 1993 Ken head, right? But and then again, it's like sewing machines. Are you going to sell sewing machines, or are you going to part out sewing machines?
Yeah.
I think the easy route is not always what you think it is, right? Selling a sewing machine's a pain in the butt. It's a huge, heavy thing you have to ship, test, all this stuff. If you're just parting it out, you got little tiny parts. You don't got to test the parts as long as they're, all there, complete. Boom, you got probably 50 more listings than that one listing. You're probably going to make a lot more money because usually when you part things out, you make more money. That's just the rules of the game. And I even thought about this like, what about board games, right? People collect their board games. What if you just buy board games for $1 a piece and you part out the board game pieces? How many pieces are in a board game? Just imagine like a Risk board game or, even Monopoly, like one card missing. Like there's so much more opportunity than meets the eye, and there's so much more profit to be made if you just think things like one more step further. Like what it's just like give me something. You got something on your mind where it's like on the surface, like with books, you could just sell dust jackets.
Yeah, I mentioned that one too. I could have a totally dust jacket store. It'd be kind of cool. Easy to store potentially. Um, no, I mean back to Barbies or just toys in general. I could see somebody just doing the boxes, not even toys, just the boxes the toys come in. Because people are always after the box. That's for those people that need it in a box, right? You could also, I mean, even with books, you could do we mentioned dust jackets. I mean, I hate to say it, but if you take some of the older, not worth anything books and you cut out the illustrations, you could sell those illustrations for probably more than what you would sell the book for that had all of them in there to begin with. Now, that's blasphemy in book land, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, who knows, dude? Like yeah, of course, all the the gatekeepers of media. You're not gonna make anybody doing that, Johnny. It's like you could cut out the insides of the book and like have a little safe in there, right? Like
oh yeah,
there's so many things we can do, but we're just like, well, we just got to sell the book. We got to sell the book as the book. We can't do anything else to it to think outside of the box. Like it's crazy to me. Like we get so narrow minded. I guess like it should be that resellers suck at innovating their own market, right? Like we just copy and paste what somebody else does. We hit sell similar. That's it on eBay. On Amazon, the listing's already there. We're just listing. There's no innovation, and I don't think anybody even cares. Like I do know there's people out there that are thinking outside the box, making a whole bunch of money right now because everybody else just copy paste. But I do think there is still so much room to kind of switch things up. And honestly, it'd be less work, you make more money. What could go wrong? Like if I ever got out of media, I would probably do something along those lines, parts or, pieces of something where there's an endless supply for super cheap and it's easy to store. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's laziness, man.
no, it absolutely is. I mean, and the lazy part, the start of it is even thinking about these things. You could be anywhere to think. I mean, you may need to set some distraction-free time away from yourself, but you take your brain with you 100% of the time. So you could be thinking when you're standing in line, on your commute to your day job, or on your commute to go sourcing, or hey, first thing when I wake up, or last thing before I go to bed. I'm spending 15 minutes on how to be better than everybody else, or not even that, do something differently than everybody else. You don't even have to be better. If you're not a hyper competitive person, great. Be more creative. Do something different.
I I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die on this hill, Johnny. It's gonna be like when we're like 80 years old, still doing this podcast. I'm still gonna talk about this one opportunity I think that exists in the eBay marketplace. Hiring some hunk ripped guy to sell romance novels, and the cover photo is him all oiled up, right? He's looking like Arnold in his prime, and he's holding your book right there. And I guarantee the sell through on those books would be at least 10x compared to the category.
I've seen people do that in clothing. They hire a model to actually wear the clothes instead of doing a flat lay or a mannequin. There's a model wearing the clothes.
I mean, I don't need clothes. No shirt is in the job description for the route I'm
Shirtless
going.
man with a kilt.
Yes, a hunky shirtless man that holds up my little Fabio style love paperback books. I mean, I'm just saying that's where my mind runs to sometimes, and I do think if we just allowed ourselves to kind of explore these categories we sell in, like you could you could strike gold today. I guarantee it. If you just decided, and if you do go down one of these rabbit holes, right? you have to give it a real chance. With anything in life, you have to give something an actual chance to get results before you can be like, well, this doesn't work. I'm not talking about you hire, Fabio's twin for a week and then expect to get, crazy results right away. Anything you try, you have to give, I don't know, like 3 months, 2 months, 3 months full attention before
Yeah,
you can
the
even.
longer you give it, the better true to what the results are it's going to be.
Yeah, but I mean, some people be like, well, I listed 3 dust jackets today and I haven't sold any in a week. This doesn't work. Like,
Yeah, those people can they can do a yard sale. That's what they'll be good at.
yeah, it's just I feel like there's so much room for innovation and reselling that's just untapped. And I don't know, like I try to figure it out sometimes. Like people are probably like, Mike, well, why don't you do it? Well, what I'm doing currently works, right? I'm not on YouTube crying that eBay's dead and my business is going under and me, Deb, and the cats are, eating out of the dumpsters. Like my business is working fine, but I see so many people whining all the time. I'm just like, well, what are you doing differently? No, of course you can't compete with Tech or Johnny in their respective categories. You're not doing nothing different than them, and your listings are worse. So like you automatically lose out the gate. It's like you're almost handicapped immediately when you start a business when you go into some of these categories, especially on eBay, right? Amazon, a lot of it's based off price. Yeah, you lose money, but there's really like with eBay, you have to be different. Your photos, what are you doing for your photos? What are you doing for your listings? Self-similar works for somebody like me who has no expectations to make any kind of money on eBay. If I do, ding, 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 it's a bonus, right? Oh my God, I sold something on eBay. But like, if I just had to sell on eBay, it would be brutal. I think about this all the time. I'm like, if Amazon ever, takes me to the guillotine, like, it's going to be brutal, but I will guarantee you, I will not do just books on eBay. Like, if the time comes and I get axed and I'm not media. That'll probably still be a part of it, but I'm going to go down one of these, parts and pieces business styles and do something that nobody else is really doing, or maybe there's always going to be somebody else doing it, right? Like we can go look for anything on eBay, but it's kind of what you did. You identified like almost like a gap in the market, right? There's something
Exactly. That's
going on
exactly
here.
what I did. Yeah.
So even if there's always somebody else doing something, I'm just telling you to do something better. And I think the same argument can be said like Deb, she has a cat and dog toy business, right? And so many people knock off her toys on Etsy, but they don't do it the same way. Her listings are better. She's got more reviews. She's got video reviews. Everything about her, even down to her product quality, it's all better. So yes, she gets knocked off all the time. Deb of, 5 years ago when she first started her business would probably be more pissed off today. Now she's just like, it's garbage compared to me. Like, who cares? You're just like, you can't keep being an imitator, right? You got to be the person at the front of the line. If you're always chasing, and what they do on Etsy, right? They sort things by bestseller. So like if Deb gets a bestseller, it's like, oh, this is going to get knocked off within the month. And that's exactly what happens. But it doesn't matter because Deb already controls that market, right? She's already built up a brand. She's already built up the store. The people know the quality. People see the reviews. So you get to a point where, as the big person, you don't care about all the new people or all the people coming in and knocking you off and thinking they can do things the way that you can when you know they can't. And that's just the reality of it. It's the same thing in resale. That's why all the little people go away with time because hey, you can't compete with the big people because they're doing more. They got more capital. They got more inventory. They got more everything. They're getting inventory for cheaper. They're doing a better job listing. Maybe they have help so they can list more. It's just like I think it's a revolving door. It's just like some people are never going to get there doing what they do today.
Right. I mean, even people can come in and compete with me and do things slightly different. I told this on one other podcast. You do everything like me and then you include page numbers because I don't do page numbers. You've won. You've done something differently than I do.
Yeah, but I mean, what are the odds that somebody's actually going to do
None. That's why I gave it.
that? One day, a new book shepherd will emerge from the shadows.
And it's
Um,
time for me to go off in the pasture and lay down.
That's right. So I think we're gonna wrap up the we're gonna jump into the members part here shortly, but I think we're gonna wrap up the call here and just I want everybody listening to think about the category you sell in and think about one thing that makes you different from everybody else in that category. I think that's the biggest takeaway, even for my Amazon business. I have things that I do differently. And that doesn't necessarily have to be something related to product, right? Maybe it's a process. Maybe all of a sudden you cut your time that you're investing in the business in half. So all of a sudden, you're not expecting to be selling millions of dollars a week. You can sell $500,000 a week because you're spending half the time in the business. There's plenty of different things you can do just to think outside the box. And I'll be curious, if you're watching this over on YouTube, drop a comment for something like you think is different in the category that you're in that you think could actually make money. I think there's opportunities out there everywhere. I think the golden age of reselling it's still here, because the fact we could even do this and make an income is proof that the golden age of reselling is here. Because I mean, where else in the world can you have a business like this and make a full-time income, being your own boss, selling junk nobody else wants, in quotation marks, because there's always a buyer out there for you. You just have to get it to them. So we appreciate y'all listening. We'll talk to you in next week's episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Resellers Mindset Podcast. Today's full episode and all previous episodes are available to all YouTube members, along with the weekly Zoom call and private Discord. Head on over to youtube.com/theusebookguy and consider joining for as little as $2.99 a month.